Hello and welcome to Conversations About Conversations. My name is Ivan Farber. I'm your host. I've created this show, Conversations About Conversations, for client-facing business professionals who know that their conversations are decisive when it comes to making the money they want to be making, getting the results they want to be getting the esteem and respect from their peers and management, and overall want to raise their game. Today, I'm talking about mentorship, and the title of today's presentation is Mentorship Wins Championships. And I've been thinking a lot about mentoring right now because I just started working with my 18th mentee in the last 12 years. So suffice it to say, I really enjoy working with mentees. I've done it a lot, and there's a lot of good reasons for doing so. I personally was greatly influenced by two profound mentors for me. One in my 20s who was very kind to me and very nurturing, I tend to refer to as my tender mentor. And then in my 30s, I had a mentor who was very strict and stern, and his goal at first was to get under my skin and see what I was made of. And when I would describe him to my father would say, he doesn't sound like a mentor, he sounds like a tour mentor. So I had my tender mentor and my tour mentor. And as I look at all the things I've done in my career that have propelled me forward, I would say the mentoring, both that I've had and also given, are a big part of that. I mean, there's only so much you can do when it comes to wanting to get ahead. You can take courses, classes, programs. You can hire coaches. I've done that quite a bit. You can read books. You can have role models, all very important. But the one I want to talk to you about today, the one foremost on my mind because I'm working with a new mentee, number 18, is mentorship. So I put together this presentation. And this presentation is actually a little bit for my new mentee to explain to him some of the lessons I've learned about mentor-mentee relationships and what some of the problems are and what I need him to do if he's going to be successful in being mentored by me. So, problems. So these problems are problems I had, and I'm going to take the leap, and they're problems that maybe you have or that he has. Problem number one, you're not receptive. I was not receptive at first to my mentors. And not only was I not receptive, but I was also resistant to what they were offering to me. Very important to be receptive. Number two, I had bad habits, but I pretended that I didn't have bad habits. When my mentor was very direct with me, my tour mentor, he's like, my job is to break you of your bad habits. I was like stunned and not very secure about the fact that I had bad habits at all. Well, later on, I realized I have bad habits. I still have bad habits. And what a gift it is for someone who's watching you very carefully and closely to point those out. Number three, I was overconfident. And you might be overconfident too. In order to have it work when you're working with a mentor, you have to look and say, am I being overconfident here in what I know? And is that causing me to not be receptive, not listen, and resist the advice I'm being given? Or am I willing to be humble? And then the fourth problem that I see is not being either able or willing to implement new strategies. I've had mentees in the past who get the strategy conceptually, but just like, I can't implement it. And they feel bad about it. But what works better is being able to implement it, or at least being willing to implement it. I've worked with some mentees who were just unwilling. Like I would say, you need to ask closed-ended questions. I'm sorry, I would have said that, but I also would have said, you need to ask open-ended questions, and they're just not doing it. And one mentee, to be a little bit demonstrative, I took off my shoe. I wasn't Nikita Khrushchev banging my shoe at the United Nations, but I took off my shoe to prove the point. Like, you're not doing it. You're not willing to implement what I'm teaching you. So anyway, the problems: not being receptive, not resisting, not listening. And there's a mindset that gets you stuck in these problems. one mindset is your cup is turned upside down. It's an expression I learned from one of my role models, Jim Rohn, who would say some people have their cup open to receive, and some people are so not willing to receive, their cup is turned upside down. Some people are focused on the fact that what they're doing is working. And indeed, when I work with a mentee or I work with someone who I'm coaching or anybody that I have the opportunity to provide some input and recommendations to, what you're doing is working. It is. It's getting results. And when I talk about mentorship wins championships, what I'm talking about is not the 8 or 9 out of 10 conversations that go exactly the way they're supposed to. I'm talking about the 1 or 2 out of 10 where your focus on the fact that what you're doing is working is actually inhibiting optimal outcomes from your conversations. I find this when I provide coaching or recommendations that I instinctually, and probably you instinctually, just justify what you're doing or defend what you're doing. And very important when you're being mentored, especially by me, it could come off that I'm being aggressive with you and that you need to defend. And that's on me if it goes that way. But also, if you're being defensive, that of course makes me a little bit more aggressive. So it's something we can work on together. And then finally, you're trying to implement what I'm teaching you, but you can't seem to incorporate the feedback fully. So these are the things that get you stuck. Your cup's turned upside down. What you're doing, you feel is working. You're defensive, you're justifying, and you're trying, but you can't seem to do it. So the new mindsets that will take you where you need to go. Number 1, be open and ready. Number 2, welcome a different perspective. Like say, okay, I'm about to be mentored or tormented by Ivan. Let me just embrace and welcome a new perspective. Try that on. Try on new concepts for size and innovate. And that's one of the things I've seen my most successful mentees do, is not only do they try on the new concepts, but then they innovate what I've taught them. And then it's one of the things that I really appreciate is it comes back to me and they say, okay, I did this, what you taught me, and I added to that. And that's a marvelous thing that happens when I mentor people. And then attitude, of course, is really important. You have a can-do, willing attitude that you embrace the mentoring or the coaching or whatever you want to refer it to, and you just go for it. So these mindsets really work. The skill sets that are required for you to be an effective mentee. Number 1, as we've talked about, listening, being receptive. Number 2, being open to input and feedback and criticism. Number 3, collaboration, and like really saying, okay, we want the same things. And 4th is being flexible, because generally what I'm going to tell you to do if you're my mentee is something that you've probably not done before, and it may seem very different, and I need you to be flexible. Already in the first couple of days of working with a new mentee, we've had to deal with what is one of the most difficult situations for someone to deal with, and that is a client trying to terminate the relationship with your company, with you and your company. And we've probably spent about 3.5 hours over the course of the first couple of days role playing and strategizing. And so all the things that I've was prepared to talk about in this episode that were in these slides have actually come up already. Being defensive, justifying, not being flexible, not being receptive. But those are all really important skill sets. If you indeed are going to go down the path of having a mentor, choosing to work with a mentor, being lucky enough, by the way, to have a mentor, these are important skills. Why should you want to work with a mentor? Well, here's what I see is possible for you. Number 1, you jump ahead of your peers and or your benchmark for where you should be. Like, this is a major reason why people choose to come to me for mentoring or coaching or read my book, do my programs, because they want to jump ahead of their peers. They're not satisfied being in the middle of the pack or the bottom quartile. They want to jump ahead. They know that it's something that I've done in my career, and that because I wasn't necessarily I didn't do this by interpersonal, like natural ability. Like I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Number one, I still learn I'm not as good as I think I am, but mostly because I teach this to others and because I had to teach it to myself, I'm able to teach this. Number two, having a mentor could put you on a new trajectory. Have you take a quantum leap in performance. I'm thinking about my 17th mentee, the trajectory he was on, the performance track he was on. And I really do think that the work we did together over the last several quarters is going to help him get beyond his peers, beat his benchmarks, put himself in a new trajectory. Because that's ultimately what I am looking to do for people, is help you go beyond what was predictable. Like I said, I work with, in general, client-facing professionals who need their conversations to get results. They need to be able to have better structure to their conversations. They need clarity in their conversations. Speaking about conversations, I want to point out 2 resources for you to get more value from the content I'm putting out in the world about conversations. Number 1 is Conversations, the course. You can find out more about Conversations, the course with the preview course at conversations.biz/preview. That and this show, Conversations About Conversations, are great ways to find out more about the resources that I endeavor to create and share with the world. Number 2, I wrote a book. It was published at the end of 2018. It's called Conversations. It's not called Conversations the book, but Conversations the book. It's called Conversations: How to Manage Your Business Relationships One Conversation at a Time. It's available on Amazon. I created a bit.ly link, bit.ly/conversations on Amazon. That's bit.ly/conversations on Amazon. I want to thank you for being in this conversation with me about conversations. It's been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit and talking with you today. Thanks so much.